Thanks for joining us. Hope everyone is having a great week at Consensus. I just got in this morning. It took me 19 hours to get here from LA, but that's a story for another time. Happy to have made it here. So, I'm Michael Miraflor, Chief Brand Officer at Hannah Gray VC. I'm so excited to sit here alongside three pioneers in the metaverse, fashion, and digital goods space. Every one of these individuals is so accomplished, and I am geeked to be having this conversation about digital identity in the metaverse and Web3. We only have 30 minutes, so I'm going to jump in and introduce each one of you. If I miss anything or any detail, feel free to jump in after. But Natalia Modenova is the founder and COO of DRESSX. She has been listed as a top 50 disruptor in America by Newsweek, was included in the top 50 people who shaped fashion in 2021 by Glossy, has been included in Highsnobity's top experts on fashion NFTs, among other accolades. She has more than 10 years of experience in the fashion industry, including founding the showroom Mordash in Paris and founding the international conference Fashion Tech Summit. In 2020, Natalia launched her first tech company, DRESSX Meta Closet, which is bridging the metaverse, Web3, AR, and tech. A year after its launch, DRESSX became the world's largest digital fashion store, and consumers can currently experience it on e-com storefront, mobile iOS and Android apps, and an NFT marketplace.
All true.
All true. Chad Knight is a digital artist, a foundational member of the NFT community, and currently head of Cyberware at WILDERWORLD. Coolest title ever. He has a place in legit cool internet history for when a piece of his digital artwork went viral in 2017 and caused an uproar, somewhat of an uproar. Internet went kind of nuts because people couldn't tell if his 3D rendered fountain, called Release, was actually a real place in Japan or not. So I think it's safe to say that Chad has been skirting the line between IRL and URL for some time now. Chad is also a former head of 3D design at Nike, and he was a pro skateboarder prior to that for almost 20 years. He's no stranger to working in the digital world and uses Cinema 4D to create sculptures that push the limits of physics. And I think we're going to talk a little about physics, or why the fact physics even exists in the metaverse.
All true.
Megan Kaspar, to my immediate left, last but not least, is a founding member of Red DAO, the world's first digital fashion DAO, investing and participating in the emergent opportunities around fashion and apparel trends, dematerializing the industry. And I think that's a key term, dematerializing. Would love for you to get into that. Megan is also a co-founder and managing director at Magnetic, now called Firstlight, a privately held crypto and blockchain investment and incubation firm. She's been early in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Phantom, Polygon. Might have heard of a couple of those. Over the past year specifically, she's been focusing her digital transformation efforts to reduce the negative environmental impact of production, manufacturing, and distribution of physical consumer apparel in the same way that digital music reduced plastic cassettes and DVDs, which I think is much needed from a fashion perspective and is fascinating to think about. She was the very first person, fun fact, in history to wear digital NFT fashion on live broadcast television, and is also the first person globally to be featured in a glossy magazine wearing exclusively luxury digital fashion. And I think you actually have a few copies of the magazine lying around here.
Yeah.
So quickly to frame the conversation, and I hope this will be an active conversation. I hope we interrupt each other and we add on and pile on. I just want to state a couple of facts. So 70% of Gen Z and young millennials recently said, globally, that their digital identity is as important as their IRL identity. More than 50% of those are interested in buying digital assets in the next 12 months. 12 months sounds like a long time, but that might as well be tomorrow. Now, the fashion industry generates $2.5 trillion in global annual revenue. This is pre-pandemic. And the beauty industry averages around $5 billion a year. So that being said, I feel like we're very early, but there is a very, very high ceiling. So there are a few subtopics that I want to touch upon. First and foremost, which is why we're here. We want to talk about identity and digital identity. So Chad, this one's for you. Digital identity can mean many things. It could mean PFP projects, avatars, where you spend your time on Discord. What does digital identity mean to you as you're helping to build a new metaverse from the ground up at WilderWorld, and just your general ideas about digital identity in general?
That's a great question. I think that I think it means different things to different people and presents different opportunities for different people. There's people who are very comfortable in their skin in real life, and then there's people who aren't. There's people who may feel like the body that they live in doesn't really represent who they feel like they are. And I feel like PFP is kind of a gateway to that, where we can start to represent ourselves in different ways. And moving into the metaverse, as we get the opportunity to have avatars that we can customize to represent ourselves how we want, then I think that's going to present an opportunity for people who are maybe less comfortable in their own skin to be able to, I guess, represent themselves how they feel like they want to be represented.
So in a way, someone's digital identity can be more of their real identity, or at least how they feel internally.
Yeah, I mean, you could represent yourself as a puppy if that's what you feel like you are inside. You know what I mean? Like there's a big gap, I think, sometimes in how someone believes that their outward representation should be, and how they feel truly inside, like what they identify as. And the metaverse gives them the opportunity to represent themselves that way.
Right, right. So on one side, you might have what you feel is your real representation out in the digital world. But I think from an avatar perspective, in terms of digital goods, it's also a way to express your fashion sense and your taste. So Natalia, from a digital goods perspective, what can you glean from data at DRESSX in terms of what people are purchasing? Are you seeing anything specific in terms of when people first invest in digital fashion, they're buying maybe things that are a bit more conservative, things that are, they have a relationship with in the real world, or are people kind of diving into the deep end and buying the most digital native feeling, metaverse feeling things? Or is it both, or is it neither, or how does that look?
Yeah, it's actually related to the previous question, and digital identity gives us an opportunity to present ourselves to different communities, because right now we are so much connected with the world and with different people through different communities that have certain visual language. And fashion has always been a visual language beyond the point that we have to wear something to protect ourselves from the weather. It's exactly what fashion industry does, rather than a broader like apparel industry. And fashion has always been a language, and now this language is translating into the digital realm. Same as we go from handwriting to the typewriting and sending text so much more than we are sending postcards which are signed by hand. The same happens with fashion, and exactly that's why we believe that everyone will have a digital wardrobe, closet of digital items. And we already see this trend because we launched DRESSX in summer of 2020 in the middle of pandemic, when people were locked down and they had to communicate online, and a lot of the lifestyle habits changing, and we see each other from the screens, and that's exactly where digital fashion comes into the place and plays its role. So there are two types of customers, I would say. The first is someone who is more maybe open-minded and digitally native, who goes for something that is out of this world, that cannot exist in real life, and you can wear it in a digital format. And another category of users that are not so kind of advanced, but still early adopters, I would say, because digital fashion is an early and young industry, but they still want to see something that is very much related to wearables in the real world.
Right.
And for that part, it's important that it would look so realistic. And for as a category, they prefer something that is crazy, and you can wear it in augmented reality, you can wear it in virtual worlds, and both coexist. I would say just an evolution of a taste and evolution of onboarding.
Right, right. I like how you frame it up as a natural evolution of sorts. And at the end of the day, I mean, you kind of want to show off, right? You want to flex. You want to show people that you have good taste or an elevated sense of fashion. But on the other side of that, specifically when it comes to digital, or maybe not just digital, I mean, there is utility when it comes to purchasing in real life fashion items, right? If I'm going to buy a pea coat, it's to keep me warm, right? That's obvious. If I buy a digital item, I mean, the definition of utility is, or could be, altogether different. Megan, what are some of the examples of utility that consumers of digital items can come to expect in the metaverse or otherwise?
Well, I think it's similar to how we use our physical fashion today. We use it to represent ourselves, to accessorize and express ourselves. So we can do the same thing in the digital realm, only now it's global proof and people can see. So if you look at things like what G-Money is doing, for example, around identity and social media and digital flexing, picking up, you know, a crypto punk like he did last year in January, and using that as sort of a digital flex. He's showing the world that, you know, we're moving into a real dematerialized environment socially, and you know, one where I think our identity, our physical identity, will be valued less than our digital, and our digital identity will become more important to us because we now have, you know, the use of a blockchain and the technology that it provides with immediate proof and validation of what those items are.
Right, right. Chad, what do you think about when when people ask you about, okay, what is the utility of these digital garments that you're building? Or because some of these things can be expected, and some of these things we've been talking about for the better part of a year, but you tend to be a visionary and look into the future. I mean, what is the definition of utility for digital objects to come?
Yeah, so like you touched on with the P-code example, there's physical utility for objects and things that we wear in this world and accessorize ourselves with. And in the virtual world, I think it has a totally different meaning because of the opportunity to embed utility into certain assets. So I could, you know, have a pair of sneakers that help me walk comfortably, but in the metaverse, they could also enable my avatar to know Kung Fu. So, you know, you get into this whole nother realm of possibility of how things can provide capabilities and functionality to the avatar and how they interact with that world. I think that also utility can be tied to like NFT oracles and things like that, where it can ping data externally and update itself based on external events. So I think that it opens the world up of possibility to where you can be much more creative with what the products that you're creating, how you define them, and what they really mean.
Right, right. And Natalia, you've done a great job at providing a bit of an on-ramp to people who are interested in digital fashion that might have very minimal experience doing anything with a wallet or doing anything on-chain. At DRESSX, you have actually several tiers of experience to kind of dip your toe into digital fashion. Can you go into that in terms of, I can upload a picture and you can dress it digitally, or the app experience versus the NFT experience?
Sure. Actually, when we were launching in 2020, we understood that it's going to be not so easy for average user, especially someone who just loves fashion, to onboard into the crypto world and NFTs. So we decided to explain the use case of digital fashion first. And actually right now we are reopening our kind of welcoming page of DRESSX, which will help to navigate to people in their needs and in their level of experience in this digital kind of world. And they will be able to choose if they want to shop for something very exclusive, very unique, and it's going to be an NFT, so they can only wear it themselves and share it and still be able to have the utility out of this NFT with augmented reality, with dressing up on the pictures. Like, for example, you see the magazine, Megan is wearing digital dress. So that's exactly what you can be doing already today. What's important to remember, digital fashion is not only about the future. Of course, there will be a lot of other evolutions of this category, but it's already possible to wear it today on your images, even if you don't have avatar yet, because raise your hand who have an avatar, by the way. It's so interesting. Okay, it's like maybe 1/3, right? But all the rest, you don't have avatar yet. But who has an account in social media? Well, it's a little bit more people, right? So there is a possibility for those who don't have avatars yet, but have an account in social media or not, or just have a photo of themselves, to already start wearing digital fashion. And that's exactly one of the experiences. You upload a picture, you choose an outfit, and you get it back wearing it. Another experience is you scan a code, or you open your app, which is DRESSX Meta Closet. You choose what you want to wear, and you just point your camera at yourself through the mirror or at a friend. It's very kind of collaborative tool as well. And you get your piece of content already altered and already styled digitally. So that's the beauty of it, that it's already happening today. That's important to remember.
Yeah, it's interesting how Web 2.0 platforms are important in on-ramping people at Web 3. So there's a bit of a Web 2.5 component there. Speaking of evolution of Web 2 to Web 3 and going all the way back to print media, when I picked up that issue of Haute Living, I didn't realize that all the photos that you were wearing, Megan, were digital.
Yeah.
Like, I had to really look twice. I had to kind of scrutinize it and be like, oh, is that really? But it 100% was.
By the way, DRESSX digitized, so they digitally tailored those pieces and put them on me, and then did the shadowing and the wrinkles of the clothing. It's incredible.
So cool
That they've been able to perfect that.
But you can wear it actually. You can scan a code and wear the same Fendi outfits in augmented reality. That's exactly beauty of fashion. This is very inclusive space, especially digital fashion, because it's for literally everyone. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to be a model. You can start wearing it and explore.
Are either of you wearing anything digital today?
You just can't see it, but I'm
wearing actually on this picture. Yes, it's digital.
Okay.
Mine too. Yeah. the dress, the Fendi dress that was digitized. So.
But this is a good segue into aesthetics, right? Because I'm seeing it go both ways, where you have mainstream fashion houses and brands taking a lot of inspiration from the digital world, and you're seeing it happen the other way as well. So Megan, in your conversations with maisons and brands, and just thinking in your Red DAO community, where is the pull and where is the push? Should we expect digital garments to be like the ones that appear in the magazine, where you can't really tell, and is that the point? Or is it to be a bit digital native and metaverse first, or is there room for both, or which way is it going?
I think the fashion industry overall is incrementally moving towards a digital first approach.
Interesting.
And that's happening slowly. And the more platforms like DRESSX show the use cases and usability, that will just become more pervasive. But there's companies also like UNXT who have partnered with Dolce & Gabbana. Last year they did the 9-piece couture item drop. So this was the first time that a high-end luxury fashion designer had created designer pieces and then launched them as NFTs. So some of them were digital, some of them were physical and digital, and then they all came with experiences. So.
And Red DAO acquired a few of those pieces, if I'm correct, right? And
we have 3 of them.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it broke records for the amount of ETH that was laid out for one of those specific pieces. I want to come back to that though. I want to ask Chad about your thoughts around digital first aesthetics. So you come from the sneaker world. You spent a few years at a very giant global footwear brand, and you're building similar objects for WILDERWORLD. Is it a necessity for things like digital shoes to look very metaverse first, or for it to be a lot of neon, and for things to be on fire, or for things to kind of like act in a certain way? Is that the expectation of the consumer, or is this kind of like bringing people into it?
Yeah, I think that there is something to making things familiar as an entry point for people. A little bit more comfortable with buying an asset that looks like something they recognize or they can relate to in terms of like the value of what a physical shoe has. And there's a good point that she made about how digital first is really starting to fall into traditional product just because of the efficiencies that it creates with the production process and whatnot. But I think that as a designer, I think it's a little lazy to just make exactly what you can make in this world, because there's so many tools in the digital realm, and there's so many things that you can do that you can't do in the physical world, like akin to manufacturing techniques that I think drive a lot of innovation or new looks. There's similarly, you can do the same thing with 3D design techniques. So creating a shoe, for example, using computational techniques that you couldn't manufacture, but you could you could use to make a very unique looking sneaker silhouette or a new shoe or something like that, or even the possibility of having parts of an accessory that don't connect to one another.
Right.
But I think that, yeah, there's VFX opportunities, there's computational design, there's a whole slew of new tools that can be used to be creative with. So I think just creating models of things that are restricted by physics and manufacturing techniques is good for people, like I said, as an entry point, but I think over time it's going to evolve to some very interesting places.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is how to define quality in the digital world, right? Because with conventional, in real life fashion, there are certain things that determine the value of any given object, right? There's brand, there's the designer, there's scarcity, quality of materials, craftsmanship, provenance of materials, things like that.
And we have fidelity also as like a slider in the metaverse. There's some that are very pixelated, looking like these voxel worlds where you can't really appreciate the craft of something because the fidelity is so low. But once you move into some photorealistic metaverses, that quality and that craftsmanship can really show.
So the fidelity of a digital object, we're thinking, is something that will be a determinant of its price, its value.
Yes, I would say. I mean,
that's interesting.
Not think about. Yeah, I mean, not
right. Remember, we're
like
speculating.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We're thinking like years and years ahead.
But I can confirm, because fidelity also requires computational power. So to render something high res and to render something low res, you're just gonna spend more time. More power means more money. So of course, it's also gonna be a part of the kind of quality definition.
Right.
However, it's not the only one, because there is also so much more. What is meaning behind that? What is like utility behind that, and other things.
It's interesting you bring up computational power and energy. I know, Megan, this is something that you've been working on over the past year, is how to basically work at offsetting the energy required by the fashion industry to produce garments. I mean, at a certain point in time, I was working on a very large fast fashion brand, and when you look at the numbers, it is startling and is definitely something that is unsustainable. Can you go into your thinking around how, I mean, it is a bit of a dissociation when you think about all the conversation, all the negativity around energy and blockchain, but you're actually putting effort into kind of using the blockchain to address that problem. How is that going?
Yeah, the fashion industry is one of the top most polluting industries in the world. Just producing clothing alone, it becomes more polluting than all of the airtime and maritime shipping for the clothes. So I think moving more towards a digital fashion first environment will obviously decrease that. and the more use cases that we have for digital fashion. Right now, we don't really have very many use cases other than augmented reality through our phone, superimposing onto existing content, photos and videos. But in the near future, our smartphones will be disrupted by a near-eye wearable that will empower augmented reality. And when we use that augmented reality, I think we're going to be, you know, our closets will have tens of multiples more of digital fashion, and fashion that can do more things than our clothes, our physical clothes now. We're limited. Brands can't, they don't know where we're wearing our clothes, how we're wearing them, who we're wearing them with. They're also not animated. So there's many different things that'll come out of new business models that'll come out of using digital fashion as well.
Interesting. What is the meta retail experience going to look like 2, 3, 5 years from now? Because right now, buying digital objects you still get mostly the same UX as if you were buying a physical garment, right? Is the shopping experience going to be Metaverse first, where it's going to replicate the feeling of walking to a high-end, high street retail location? Is it going to be more of the same of what we're experiencing now? Is it something that we haven't even thought of? Chad, what are your thoughts on? Because you're also building a marketplace in WILDERWORLD, and I'm sure this is something that you're thinking about.
Yeah, I obsess over UX, UI, and experience. That I mean, I think that right now we're a little bit held back by that in the blockchain space, because, or just Web3 in general, because there's so many steps for people to go through to get something.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like kind of like with 3D tools in the beginning, they were so complicated to use that there weren't a lot of really truly creative people that use them. It was a lot of engineers that would use them because they were the ones who knew how to code certain things. But as it becomes easier to use, you're going to get more mass adoption. So I think it needs to just be a very seamless, you know, the least clicks possible to get what you want. But I think that in terms of the experience relative to the physical experience of buying something, it's going to be way different, just because you're not limited by anything. Like you're the gods of these metaverses, because you can make anything happen in them. Whatever you want to happen, you can make it happen if you can code it. So the ability to go in and you know, put something on and see what it looks like, and then if you don't like the color, you just change it right there. Yeah. There's just endless opportunity, I think.
I feel like you're holding back. I feel like you've developed something and you just can't disclose too much of what it is.
No, so something else that I think is, and this is kind of with the shopping experience, but also with the design experience, is I think that it's going to be much more of a collaborative process with the consumer and more of a co-design. Like when you can customize an avatar, I see a future where you can also customize your garment to exactly what you want it to look like, you know, based on some parameters.
Yeah, there are quite a few companies now that are working on in real-time trait changing on your avatars or PFPs, and I think that that will also become a really cool aspect of using digital fashion.
Yeah, it's all net new. It's all so interesting to think about. So to that point, you're talking about new companies kind of changing the game. Who will win? This is a question for all of us. Is it the Maisons and the fashion houses that have been around for 50, 100 years? Is it footwear companies that kind of dominate the scene right now? Is it net new Web3 native fashion companies that might not have even been started yet? Like, what's your hot take, given we only have a minute and change left?
Oh, I think that
for everyone.
Yeah, I think that right now it's a little bit of that moment where it's kind of open for new people to come in and do something really disruptive. And you know, like when Google started, right when kind of Web 2 took off, there was this opportunity for new players to come in based on new innovations. I think it's also going to probably go the route of a lot of the stores that used to rely a lot on print catalogs. Those who weren't able to pivot and adopt this new digital shopping experience or whatever with the websites, I think everybody's going to have a metaverse as a website. And I think that there's a small window for the big players right now to be able to adjust to this new technology that we're going into. And I think it's kind of, like I said in the beginning, it's up in the air right now, and it's open to whoever's going to make the biggest impact.
But I think we can also learn from the history, and the last kind of disruption in fashion industry happened with global disruption with e-commerce. And we can see that even bigger players, like Barney's was a huge store, it's closed now, right?
Yeah.
They didn't adopt new reality, right? And new players like Net-a-Porter emerged. And now is a similar times, and we are moving into the very exciting future. And of course, there is a space for the new companies and for the new players to emerge and to grow huge. And there is an opportunity for the existing companies to adopt the new reality and new business models. I'm sure a lot of them are emerging. I'm sure digital fashion will be a huge category. There is already studies from like Morgan Stanley, from a lot of other institutions. So there is an opportunity for everyone who moves fast and really thinking about the user first.
Megan, any last words before we get booted off stage? I think this has been a great conversation, by the way. I'm bummed that we ran out of time.
Yeah, me too. I think companies like Artifact that are digitally fashion native, as well as high-end fashion brands and mid-tier fashion brands that are looking at applications for digital fashion through identity. And I think that those are really going to be the main starters.
Yeah, to sum it all up, you know, a lot of the big fashion brands that were laggards when it came to e-commerce, streaming, and things like that, the beginning of Web 2.0, they're ahead of the game now, so it's sort of flipped. So thank you so much to the esteemed panelists for spending half an hour with all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wish we had another half hour to keep on talking about
Yes.
stuff. We can go on forever, but thank you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend at Consensus.
Thank you.
Thank you.